My name is Paloma Juarez. These are our three sons, and I'm truly honored to be here today to talk to you about our family's diagnostic journey. My husband Brian and I were actually dating and having a long-distance relationship when we found out we were expecting. We looked at a couple of different places, states more glamorous than the Midwest, but finally we decided to set up home in my hometown of Kansas City, Missouri. We actually moved to a suburb called Overland Park and discussed should we move my doctor from 20 minutes away in Kansas City to closer to the apartment. And after much battling from a stubborn pregnant lady, we decided not to. So that ended up being a detail that would change our lives forever. This is Vaughn Sanford Way. He was born on May 28th, 2016 in Kansas City, Missouri. I love that chunky kid. At 7 days old, we received a phone call saying, hey, your son has been flagged with his newborn screening for something called Pompe. Please do not Google it, as this is brand new technology. At the time in 2016, Missouri was only one of 5 states screening for the disorder, and so they were pretty sure that this was just a false positive. 2 days later, we met with a genetics team and a cardiologist. We had blood draws, an echo, and what we found was that Vaughn had elevated CK levels and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Our world was shattered, and we had a diagnosis of not just Pompe disease, but an extraordinarily difficult form of Pompe. So what is Pompe? We Googled it before we had gotten off the phone, and the only thing I really remember is that bottom part that says it leads to death from heart failure in the first year. I still get emotional thinking about those feelings. We took our son home and we began researching. How do we find a plan to save him? Because this cannot be his story. Oh no. So with a 9-day diagnosis, we found a study that talked about best outcomes for children with his diagnosis was to begin enzyme replacement therapy within the first 30 days of life. But that seemed really impossible traditionally because children weren't diagnosed till at minimum the first month, but generally within 3 to 4, and a lot of damage could happen by then. Our community has a saying that time is muscle, and every single muscle can and will be affected and is vulnerable. So we pushed and we fought, and at 23 days old, Vaughn Way started enzyme replacement therapy. We were hopeful. We thought that because we have done this, maybe his life and story would be different. This is him and I at the hospital with his dad getting port placement, a really tricky time. But we made it to his first birthday. He was meeting milestones, he was growing, he was thriving, but we knew there was still more that we could do. And so we finally reached out to our Pompe community and attended our first pediatric Pompe conference at Duke when he was 2. And what we found out was kind of devastating. Vaughn's story, while amazing for us, was not the typical one. We met 2-year-olds that were using wheelchairs, whose parents were feeding them with their G-tube while we were just chatting casually at a table. There were children that were second born to their family because their older brother or sister had succumbed to the disease. And so we felt a certain amount of guilt because how could Vaughn's story be so drastically different when we're talking about even 6 to 12 weeks difference of starting enzyme replacement therapy? And we knew that this was important details. Challenges for Vaughn were he really had issues with those oral muscles. So things that help you talk, things that help you chew, things that help you laugh or giggle. Those were all hard for him. And so we continued therapy. We found services to help him learn how to eat orally, and he just continued to learn and move on. Let's see if this wants to play. Oh, it doesn't. So in 2020, we found out we were expecting twins. They were fraternal, so we knew that each of them were going to have their own odds of having the disease. So at 20 weeks, we scheduled a double amniocentesis, and we found out that baby A was positive for Pompe, had the exact same mutation and disorder as Vaughn, and baby B was completely not affected, not even a carrier. Cohen Peter Way and Xavier Daniel Way, we welcomed them at 37 weeks on August 17th of 2020. We had learned from Vaughn and the community that we needed to keep pushing the limit. So our goal was, can we start him with enzyme replacement therapy at a day old? Only that was a little hard to do because there were 2 babies in there, and we needed to make sure we were doing this with the right one. So at 3 days old, our other little chunky baby started his road with enzyme replacement therapy. He was 20 days younger than Vaughn. And wow, did he grow. He was thriving, and he continues to learn. We have a weird science experiment going on in our house, as we not only have 2 kids with Pompe that started at different times, but Cohen and Xavier are twins. So there's always this interesting aspect of seeing how one develops against the other. And truth be told, lots of times, Cohen's a little earlier than Xavier. He is the talker, the singer, the incredibly outgoing one of our crew. So what does this mean? Well, for starters, time is muscle. We learned that even not just enzyme replacement therapy in 30 days, but enzyme replacement therapy within those first few hours. We knew because of a diagnosis with Vaughn, we started looking at different things, and actually the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy begins at 32 weeks gestation. It happens. We are seeing muscle damage that early in the 3rd trimester. So not only was it critical to start things as soon as possible within that first month of life, it's incredibly critical, can we start before birth? And what can we save because of that? I think that when you think about in terms of what muscle would you be willing to sacrifice? Would you maybe not want to eat your favorite food so that you could hear a bird chirping? Would you give up walking in the sunshine so that maybe your arms work to hug somebody nice and tight? Would it be okay for your son to have speech issues if it meant they could walk around and jump on the playground with people? All things that we've considered, all real things that happen to families who have a delayed diagnosis. Newborn screening not only saved our children's lives, but it gave them opportunities that we thought weren't possible. Today, Vaughn actually is in 2nd grade. He stood up just like I am, talking to his fellow classmates, telling them his own presentation about Pompe disease and what that means to his life. And I couldn't be prouder of him. I think the most important thing that I hope that you guys understand is while we had guilt about having a diagnosis the way that we did and how different their lives were compared to the majority of people in their community, we feel grateful because somebody somewhere stood up one day just like this and said that newborn screening for Pompe was possible. I encourage all of you to continue to think about the fact that we can still do better. Can every story not just be like Vaughn's, but can every story be like Cohen's? And that's what modernizing newborn screening will do. So thank you.